The first thing Aaron Pike noticed when he crossed the county line was the silence. Not the peaceful kind, not birds and wind quiet. This was a silence with shape to it, with edges, the kind that pressed inward instead of falling away. Even the tires on his truck seemed to feel it, their hum lowering as the road narrowed and the trees leaned closer together, branches knitting overhead like ribs. He hadn't meant to come back in October. October belonged to the mountains more than any other month. Summer tourists were gone, the leaves had rotted sweetly into the dirt, and the woods stopped pretending they were welcoming. His Uncle Ray used to say October was when the land stopped talking to you and started talking around you. Ray was dead. The thought still felt provisional, like a sentence written in pencil. Aaron kept expecting it to smudge, to erase itself if he wasn't careful. Natural causes, the coroner had said. Found alone in his cabin at the end of Laurel Fork Road. No sign of struggle, no sign of anyone else. Just an old man alone on a mountain, finally losing the argument with his heart. Aaron didn't believe it. Not because Ray couldn't die, but because Ray had been afraid of dying there. The road sign for Laurel Fork squatted crooked at the turnoff, half swallowed by ivy. Someone had taken a shot at it years ago. The O was gone, leaving Laurel FRK, as if the name itself had been shortened for convenience. Beyond it, the pavement immediately gave up, breaking into patched gravel and then into something that barely qualified as a road at all. Aaron slowed, gripping the wheel. Same as ever, he muttered, though it had been more than 20 years since he'd last driven this way. The switchbacks came sooner than he remembered. They stacked on top of each other like questions that refused to be answered. Tight turns, no guardrails, drop-offs hidden by laurel thickets and fog, the kind of road that punished confidence and rewarded hesitation. Ray had helped build it. Not the original trace, that had been an old wagon path, but the widened, blasted version the county pushed through in the late 70s. Ray had been younger then, strong-backed and steady-handed, hired on with a road crew that carved into mountains the way surgeons cut into flesh. Aaron remembered being 8 years old, riding shotgun in Ray's truck, the smell of diesel and coffee, men in hard hats drilling into stone, the mountain ringing hollow with each strike. Don't stare too long, Ray had said, eyes forward. Mountain notices when you stare. Aaron had laughed. Now, as fog crept across the road ahead like something waking up, he didn't. The radio crackled. Not music, not static, something between the two. Aaron frowned and reached for the dial. The sound cut off mid-breath. The engine coughed. Hey, don't you start, he said, easing off the gas. The truck shuddered once, then died. Silence rushed back in, thick and immediate. Aaron sat there with his hands still on the wheel, heart ticking louder than the cooling engine. He turned the key again, nothing. Not even a click. Fog rolled over the hood, swallowing the faded blue paint. It moved wrong, not drifting so much as deciding where to go. Aaron stepped out. The air smelled wet and green and old, layered with something metallic beneath it, like iron left too long in the rain. Leaves shifted somewhere downslope. Not a scurry, not a crash. Something slow, something patient. He grabbed the flashlight from the seat and swept it across the road. That's when he saw the footprints. Bare feet, narrow, pressed deep into the gravel as if whoever made them weighed more than they should have. They hadn't been there when the truck stopped. They led uphill. Aaron swallowed hard. "Ray?" he called, feeling foolish the moment the name left his mouth. The fog swallowed it whole. He followed the prints. Laurel Fork tightened as it climbed, switchbacks curling back on themselves, the trees hemming in so close that moss brushed his shoulders. The footprints never wavered, never slid on loose stone or stumbled on roots. Whoever made them knew exactly where to place each step. Ray's cabin emerged from the fog like a held breath finally released. One room. Sagging porch. Tin roof rusted thin enough to whisper in the slightest wind. The clearing around it felt scraped out, raw, as if the forest had been pushed back rather than cleared. A single light burned inside. Aaron stopped at the edge of the clearing. Ray never left lights on. He stepped onto the porch. The boards groaned, loud as gunshots in the quiet. The footprints ended at the steps. They did not go inside. They went around. Aaron went in and locked the door. The cabin smelled like old tobacco, damp wood, and something coppery that made the back of his throat itch. Ray's boots sat by the door, mud still clinging to the soles. His coat hung on its peg, pockets heavy with forgotten things. The Bible lay open on the table. Psalm 91. The page was soft with use. Notes were taped everywhere. On the fridge, the windows, the door frame. Handwritten. Shaky. Don't answer it. It learns your voice. It knows the road now. Above the door. If it knocks 3 times, lie down and don't move. The porch creaked. 1 step. A pause. Another. Then the knock. 2 taps. A weight that stretched like pulled wire. 3. Aaron lay down. The floor was cold against his cheek. Dust filled his nose. Fog crept under the door in thin, searching tendrils. Something sniffed. Slow, deliberate. Then it spoke. Aaron. Ray's voice. Perfect. Even the rasp from decades of smoking. Truck broke down, it said gently. Ain't that just your luck, boy? Aaron bit his tongue until he tasted blood. The shadow passed the window, too tall, too narrow, its head tilting as if listening for its own reflection. You always did take this road too fast, it went on. Switchbacks will get you if you don't respect 'em. The knocking started again. Not on the door, on the walls, moving, learning. Time stretched thin. The voice tried different tones, different memories. A laugh Aaron hadn't heard since he was a child. Then, slowly, the sounds faded. Morning came gray and cautious. The porch was empty. The fog pulled back. The truck started on the first turn. Aaron left without packing a thing. Aaron did not slow down until the road straightened and the switchbacks loosened their grip. He crossed the county line without noticing it, only realizing he'd left the mountain when the fog thinned into something ordinary and the radio crackled back to life with a local AM preacher halfway through a sermon. The sound made him flinch. He shut it off again and drove in silence the rest of the way. He told himself it was over, that the thing, whatever it was, belonged to the road, to the fog, to Laurel Fork and the scar the county had cut into the mountain. Ray had survived up there for decades. Maybe it had taken longer than it meant to. Maybe that was all. Aaron did not tell anyone what happened. There was no one to tell. His house sat alone at the edge of town, close enough to civilization to feel connected, far enough out to stay quiet. He parked, went inside, and locked the door with more care than usual. Then he stood in the middle of the living room and listened. Nothing. Normal nothing. He slept on the couch with the lights on. That night, he dreamed of roads. Not Laurel Fork exactly, but roads like it, curling, doubling back, crossing themselves in ways that made no sense. He dreamed of walking barefoot on gravel that sank beneath his feet, of turns that always led uphill no matter which way he went. In the dream, he heard Ray's voice calling from just beyond the next bend, always close, never visible. When he woke, his mouth was full of blood. He had bitten his tongue again. Over the next few days, small things began to feel wrong. The first was his voice. He noticed it when he spoke aloud, just a muttered curse while fumbling with his keys, and heard the sound come back to him slightly altered. Not an echo, not distortion, just flatter, as if something had smoothed the edges off it. He cleared his throat and tried again. "Get it together," he said. The words sounded fine. He told himself he was tired. The second thing was the silence. Not the heavy mountain silence, but gaps where sound should have been. The refrigerator's hum cutting out for half a second, the tick of the wall clock skipping a beat, his own breathing seeming to pause between inhales, stretched just long enough to make him wonder if he'd forgotten how to start again. He stopped using the phone. Calls felt dangerous, not because he thought someone would answer, but because of what might listen. At night, he heard movement outside the house. Not footsteps, not animals. Something pacing the perimeter, slow and methodical, as if learning the shape of the place. He lay on the couch, eyes open, counting his breaths and remembering Ray's notes. Don't answer it. It learns your voice. He wondered how Ray had learned that. On the fourth night, the knock came. 2 taps. A pause that made his heart crawl up into his throat. 3. Aaron did not move. He lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, muscles locked. The knock came again, not louder, not angrier, just patient. Then the voice. "Aaron," it said. His voice, perfectly matched. Same cadence, same faint rasp he'd picked up years ago from smoking he'd sworn he'd quit. "Hey," it said softly. "I know you're in there." Aaron closed his eyes. "I just want to talk," the voice continued. "Door don't gotta be open. Just need to hear you." The words were right. The tone was right. What was wrong was the space between them, the way the pauses felt measured, like something counting beats it hadn't quite learned to feel. The doorknob turned. It did not rattle. It did not force itself. It simply tested, gently, as if checking whether the rules had changed. Aaron remembered the cabin, the walls, the way it had moved while knocking, learning the shape of the room. The knob stopped. Footsteps retreated. He did not sleep after that. The days grew smaller. He stopped going out unless he had to. He stopped playing music. He stopped speaking except in short, careful sentences, always listening to how his words landed in the room. Sometimes, late at night, he heard his own voice from somewhere inside the house, not speaking words, just practicing, running scales, testing inflection. He tore the batteries out of every smoke detector. He covered the mirrors. He began to understand Ray's fear. The thing did not rush. It refined. Each night, it knocked. Each night, The voice improved. It learned when to breathe, when to hesitate, when to sound tired. It learned the little noises Aaron made without thinking. The click of his tongue, the sigh before a sentence, the way he said yeah when he meant no. On the 7th night, it laughed. Aaron sobbed into the couch cushions, silent and shaking. On the 8th night, it stopped knocking. That frightened him more than anything else. The house felt wrong without the ritual. The rules had given him something to hold on to. Without them, the silence felt exposed. He stayed on the floor that night anyway. Sometime near dawn, he heard movement inside the walls. Not scratching, not gnawing, walking. Slow, careful steps, as if someone were learning the layout from memory. He pressed his face into the carpet and did not scream. When morning came, nothing was out of place. The doors were still locked, the windows unbroken. But the house felt occupied, not crowded, just shared. Aaron understood then. The road hadn't been the boundary. The rules hadn't been protection. They had been training. The thing had learned how to knock, how to wait, how to speak. And now it was learning how to stay. That evening, as the light drained from the sky, Aaron stood in the kitchen and watched his reflection in the darkened window. For a moment, just a moment, the face looking back at him smiled when he did not. Behind him, something breathed. Perfectly, hollowly. And when the knock finally came again, soft this time, almost polite, it came from inside the house. 2 taps. Pause. 3. The mountains do not forget. They remember you. And once they learn your voice, they never need to knock again.